Hey there, chess improver. How would you like to learn how to punish overly aggressive play by the opponent? You know, where they try to attack you and just do anything to take the initiative. Well, maybe you find that a bit unpleasant to deal with and find it hard to suddenly be thrown on the defensive. So let me show you how you can punish this aggressive play using this game from the FIDE Chess.com Online Nations Cup, which is a tournament where different top chess countries played each other. And in this one, this was from the Russia versus India match by Vlad Artemiev as white against Santosh Vidit as black, both 2-700 plus Grandmasters. And yet white managed to win this game, even with a checkmate, in less than 30 moves. So let's see how Artemiev did it. Game went d4, knight f6, knight f3, d5, and Artemiev played the Torre with bishop g5, which is not considered one of white's best moves. Typically c4 is considered most critical, followed by the London with bishop to f4. But with bishop g5, it's playing a little shortcut, trying to surprise the opponent and get them out of their comfort zone. For example, if they were to play e6, then it gives our bishop a nice diagonal. And a setup like e3 and knight d2, bishop d3, and building this triangle can give white a nice active position. And Vidit didn't want to let white just get such a comfortable position so quickly. So he played knight e4, which I think is the best move to try and disrupt white's plan. Artemiev played bishop h4. And normally black plays the move c5 and goes for queen b6 ideas, which is actually why I did in a blitz game against Boris Gelfand back in 2018. Also h5 can be fun to explore in your own time. But instead Vidit played a move queen d6. Now what do you think is the idea of this queen d6 move by black? Now if you've watched my videos already, you'll know that you can always pause the video at moments like this when I ask you a question, and then when you come back with your move, we'll continue the Grandmaster mini lesson from there. So the answer is that black's threat is to play queen b4 and hit the pawn on b2 and also the king. So that's why Artemiev played knight bd2, so that queen b4 does not come with a check. Vidit played queen h6. And basically the idea of queen h6 is to go for g5. So that after bishop g3, knight takes g3, white wouldn't be able to take with the h-pawn in that line, because then the rook on h1 would be hanging at the end. Now this is sort of aggressive move that could easily throw off, let's say, an amateur player or someone who maybe hasn't seen this position before. So let's see if you can rise to the occasion. What's the move that Artemiev played to deal with this g5 threat? Now, obviously, we don't want to have to take back with the f-pawn when we play bishop g3. It just weakens our structure a lot to capture away from the center like that. The move Artemiev played was very tricky. He played queen to c1. And what's the idea of queen c1? Well, we see it pretty well in the game. In hindsight, maybe black should have just played knight c6 and perhaps played for some e5 push in the middle game to get reasonable play. If black plays knight d2 instead, I guess that after queen d2... I mean, to be fair, this ending is probably quite solid for black, but I feel that after either king d2 or knight d2, which might be slightly more precise to support the c4 push, perhaps, or the castle long, well, white has a small lead in development. Whether it's enough for an edge is another question, but certainly I think this was better than what black played. As it was, black played the move g5, which turns out to be a mistake. You probably see why, but if not, this is a good moment to pause and get up to speed with Artemiev's thought process in the game. So obviously we don't want to allow knight takes g3 after bishop g3. So knight takes e4 was played. Obviously gh4 is not really what black wants, allowing a trade of queens and the damaging of the pawn structure. But after d4, we now see why it was so important to play queen c1. It was basically a prophylaxis against the move g5, in that now after bishop g5, if black were to play queen g7, which I think is what he should have played, well, now if the queen was on d1, black would actually be winning a piece with this double attack, attacking the defender of the bishop. But here we can simply play knight h4, knowing that the bishop is defended. And after queen d4, how would you get your bishop out from f1 in this position? So interestingly enough, I actually wouldn't play e3 at this point, because it kind of shuts off the defense of the bishop and leaves the knight a bit out of play. I think that g3 is actually more harmonious, where after we do put our bishop on g2, say knight c6 and bishop g2, well, the bishop is also in a very good position to attack that weak e-pawn with moves like c3 or perhaps even bishop e3 at a later stage. Well, black will be a little hard-pressed to defend this pawn, and with this pawn on g5, on the g-file now gone, black's king is not completely safe. So this is the reason I would prefer white even here. But it's much better than what happened in the game. So after queen h5, white just played a very solid move. I think you can guess what the one safe move is for white in this position. Yeah, exactly. We go knight g1, avoiding any f6 moves that might have followed after the other knight moves. But knight g1, we just keep our position very safe. After bishop g7 and c3, I mean, white is just a pawn up for nothing in this position. So the rest of this video is going to be seeing, now that we've punished the opponent's overaggressive play, how to actually convert the extra pawn into a win. Because one thing I've noticed is that a lot of players who have taken for granted when we win a pawn or win more material, that we're just going to win the game. However, if you've read Smerdon's recent book, The Complete Chess Swindler, then you'll know that when the opponent is losing, they're going to fight really hard to try and turn the game around. And so we really need to be on our full attention when we know our position is really strong. So black played the move c5, trying to cause a bit of commotion in the center. And actually this is a position where Artemiev played a good move here, but maybe there's even a better one. Artemiev played bishop d2, a kind of sneaky idea that if black takes a pawn, he's not winning the pawn back because of the discovered attack on the bishop that was just unleashed. Though you could say that dc5 is maybe even better. Perhaps it's not as practical to open up the center while our kingside is undeveloped, but I think it's not such a bad move either necessarily. So after bishop d2, black played knight c6, and after e3 it sort of justifies white's play. Yeah, the bishop and queen do look a little bit passive, but white is currently a pawn up, and not only that, it's also quite easy to develop our kingside pieces, as we'll see. Black played bishop g4. I think already black was in swindle mode at this point. So how should white develop the kingside from here, do you think? Okay, when you don't have the f3 square available for your knight, then typically e2 is the next best square. And indeed with knight e2, we have the option to bring our knight out to attack the queen and possibly even the pawn as well with a tempo. So it's quite unpleasant for black. I mean, the best move objectively might be just to move the rook to d8 and castle short later. But black's position is quite tough whatever he plays. And after castle's queenside, it's sort of basically hoping for a miracle, because the king can be a little bit exposed on c8 once the c-pawn is moved. So what would be your move here if you were playing as white? Can you find a move that Artemiev played? Now, if you wanted to play knight g3, I think that's just as good as the move that white played in the game. But white actually played b4. And it's quite a natural idea, really, to open up the queenside cb4, cb4, when their king is already stationed there. Black played king b8. And I really like the spirit of White's next move, especially keeping in mind that this was a rapid game. Well, you've probably noted in rapid and blitz chess, the initiative is the most important advantage. If you have control of the game, you're calling all the shots, and you're the one with the attack, well, it's simply kind of easier to attack than it is to defend in general, and rapid and blitz, and that's why the initiative is so important. So while a move like Rook B1 to prepare B5 is certainly quite good, the move B5 is very healthy for a rapid game because, well, Black basically has to take at this point. But then after Rook B1, we've given back the pawn in order to get the open B file to the enemy king. And most of you watching this will probably know already that in order to have a successful attack against the enemy king, it's very important to open up lines toward that king, either with this pawn breakthrough we just saw here, or attacking the opponent's pawn chain, or in some cases it might even be with a rook lift in case the pawn breaks are not working so well. Well, after Queen D5 and Knight C3, it's clear White has transformed his long-term advantage of an extra pawn into an initiative with the threats against the queen, and White's piece coming to very active squares with gain of tempo. Now obviously Black doesn't just want to give up the e-pawn for free, so he played Queen E6. White found another good attacking move here. What would you play if you were White? So actually there are a lot of good moves. H3 doesn't hurt, just putting the question to the bishop. Queen B2 is quite natural to attack down the half-open B file. And then there's Artemiv's move of Knight A4, which is actually pretty strong as well, just with the idea of bringing the knight to C5 to set up a fork. Probably Black should have played Queen D6 to try and anticipate it. Although even then after either Knight C5, yeah, probably Knight C5 is the simplest, just forking these two pawns. So White wins a pawn and probably should be winning this with the very best play, though at least Black can struggle on with B6 perhaps. Whereas the game was a lot more bloody in comparison after King to A8. And yeah, you could just play Knight C5 and fork 3 of these pieces at once. Artemiv decided to play Queen B7 first, which is also very strong. Obviously you can't take the rook without running into a family fork with Knight C5. Queen D6, Knight C5. I mean, Black is down a pawn and his king is coming under a very big attack. If you give White time to play moves like Bishop B5 and Queen A3, then the A7 pawn's days will be numbered. So Black tried rolling the dice with Knight D4. And now you could just play ED4 and be a piece up. But White actually calculated a forced win here. I did more forced than just winning a piece. So it's a good moment to pause the video and practice trying to find the checkmate for White. Because solving checkmates are actually one of the best ways to improve your chess. As I also mentioned in my chess endgame studies group. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is a good time to pause the video until you have your candidate move that you want to play. Okay, so if you couldn't find better than ED4, well, it would still win the game. But the best move is Rook takes A7, double exclamation mark. After King A7, we continue with the checks, Queen A3. It's often how you can tell these sacks work, that you're able to keep up a barrage of checks that the opponent's king can't really escape from. After King B6, if King B8, White will play the same move, by the way. Queen B4, Black played King to C6. Obviously King C7 runs into Queen B7 mate, as would King A7. But now White has mate in 2. I'm pretty sure you see it, but in case you don't, pause the video and come back here when you have your move for White. Okay, congrats for finding Queen B7, King takes C5, and now to checkmate Bishop to B4. I mean, it's very rare that you see an actual checkmate happen in a game between two 700 plus GMs. So this was certainly quite a magical example where you saw a king hunt at the end. And you also learned about some other skills as well. But rather than me telling you the lessons you learned, why don't you tell me in the comments what you learned from this video? You can always go back if you don't remember what lessons I shared in how to punish the opponent's over-aggressive play or how to convert your advantage into a win. So anyway, congrats on completing this video, and I will see you in the next one for the next GM mini lesson. Grandmaster Max Illingworth, see you in the next video.